This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're going to find ourselves on different battlefields. One of us is going to play the heroes, and the other will play the villains. We're going to be using lightsabers and blasters and bringing up supports and droids and running events. Today, we're talking about Star Wars Destiny. This is from Fantasy Flight Games. This is a two-player game. It's a tactical card game with some dice. This is the newer version you can find in some mass market stores. And it's basically, specifically a two-player version where you can both get started and play the game. Let me show you. Now inside the box is an insert that holds all of the dice that come in the game and all of the cards. It also has some components, some tokens that you'll punch out. I've just kept them in the bag and stick them in the box when I'm done. Now each of the players are going to select a side, either a hero side or a villain side, and they'll play one of those two sides. On the hero side, there's two characters, there's Rey and there's Poe, and you'll get those cards up front with the dice that correspond with those cards. And for the villain side, that player will get Kylo Ren and Captain Phasma and the corresponding dice. Those are their two characters. What you're trying to do throughout the game is defeat the other player's characters. Each set of characters has a certain amount of damage, and once you're able to make those characters take that full amount of damage, those characters die, and if you defeat both characters on the other side, then you have won the game. Now typically you'd be sitting on opposite sides and you'd be facing each other, but I placed them in this way just for the ease of the video of showing you how it's played. Now each side will also get a standard deck of 20 cards. Now each deck is completely different. This is a hero deck, this is a villain deck. They also say that in certain spots that they're either going to be heroes or neutral. They're also numbered so you can make sure that all the cards go to the right player beforehand, but each player has 20 cards. I mentioned the way to win is to defeat the other player's characters, but the other way to win is if the other player completely runs out of all their cards in their deck and in their hand, then you would win as well. So this deck of 20 cards not only allows you to play cards, but also is sort of a timer for the game as well if the characters haven't been killed. Now the game is played over multiple rounds, and in each round, each player is going to first draw up so they have 5 cards in their hand, and then they're going to take actions back and forth, sort of like a ping pong. Now, as I mentioned, you're only going to be taking one action, then it will be the other player's turn, but I'm going to show you a bunch of actions in a row just to give you a feel for the different things you can do in the game. One thing you can do is play a card from your hand. Now, each of these cards have a certain amount of cost to play them. Now, that's resources. Everyone starts with a couple of resources, but you can gain them throughout the game, and at the end of each round, everyone gets 2 resources as well. So you can spend this, and there's 3 main different types of cards. There's upgrades. This happens to be a weapon upgrade. I could upgrade one of my characters with this after I've paid that resource cost. And so now what happens is some of these upgrades, this is Poe's blaster, I attach it to Poe, and some of these, if they have these icons here, it means it comes with another die. Now all these icons here, it might look confusing at first, but it's really simple. Each of these are the different 6 sides of the die. So it just shows you the distribution of the dice. So one thing you can do is pay money to play a card. Another thing you can do is activate a character. When you do that, you exhaust that character by turning it sideways and any and all cards attached to that character, and then you can roll all of the dice. You can also, for an action, resolve dice. When you resolve dice, you can resolve all of the dice that have the same icon on it. So if I had rolled this is great. For one action, I could resolve these dice. These are known in my dice pool. And I would bring them back. They're done for the round because this character is exhausted and the dice are back. And I could do 2 + 2, so 4 damage to one of the other characters. Now I could have used 1 die to attack Captain Phasma and 1 to hit Kylo Ren, but in this case I decided both of them to hit Kylo Ren. So Kylo Ren would get some damage. So 4 damage of 12. Once they get 12 damage, this character would be dead. Now these dice do different things just to show you. So this one, if it has a plus marker, it means you have to have another die out in your pool that has that marker and able to use it, but it adds 2 to it. Things like this allow you to change any die to any die in your pool to anything you want. That simply gets you some resources. Sometimes you'll activate special abilities on cards, and sometimes you'll roll and just get nothing. However, another thing you can do is discard one of the cards in your hand to re-roll any or all dice in your dice pool. So you discard a card. Now keeping in mind that cards are important because it also acts as a timer for the game. Now we've gone over characters and support. There's event cards you can play. Again, you pay the cost to just do the event, then discard it. In this case, you'd resolve one of your dice that you've already rolled in your pool, showing either the lightsaber or the blaster and increasing its value by 2, then this would just get discarded. There's also support cards that you can pay to play. This one's very expensive, but it's a strike team. It's really powerful. Essentially, it comes out with a dice. Some support comes out with a die, some don't. If it has these icons, then you bring out a die with it. And essentially, now you could, on your turn, you could resolve this support, exhaust it, roll the dice, just as you did with characters. I mentioned lightsabers and blasters. They're just different types of attack, which again allows you to resolve the same types of dice at the same time. These give you shields. Essentially, you can put a shield on a character, and this means if someone were to hit Rey with the first set of damage, it would take off the shield instead of hitting it for damage. And you can have up to 3 shields on any character at a given time. Sometimes dice will allow you to cause a player to discard a certain amount of cards randomly, and sometimes dice have you spend an additional resource in order to activate that die, but that's typically how dice work. Now each player gets a player aid, and again, you're doing one action at a time, but we've kind of talked about these: playing a card from your hand and paying the cost, activating a character, resolving the dice, discarding a reroll, use a card action, that's pretty self-explanatory, and then claiming the battlefield. So on your turn, you can pass, the other player can play, and then you can come back in. However, 2 players pass successfully, the round ends. But at the beginning of the game, one of these 2 battlefields will be selected. So let's say this one was selected, okay? Now, if this will be in front of a specific player, the one that actually owned it to start the game, so this would be the good side because it's Obi-Wan's hut. So this would be with the hero side. Now, if you're not on the side that has this card, in this case it would have started with the villain side, when they pass, they can choose to take this card and do its action. In this case, give a blue character 1 shield or spend 1 resource to give a non-blue character a shield. And they would have this. However, that means they've passed and they're out of this round for good. They can't back in like normal passing. Now this card will also tell you who goes first each round. So this card is sort of like, once you grab it, you can't do anything else that round. And if the other player has a lot of cards left, they can hammer down a bunch of turns. So it's an interesting aspect of the strategy of the game. In a nutshell, that's it. You're literally trying to destroy the other characters to win, or make them run out of cards before you do. And I'm not going to show you all the cards from the game, but I do want to show you just a few more of, first, the hero side. Now you can pause here to read all the abilities and things like that, but notice that you've got, Luke, the Ewoks, C-3PO and R2-D2, Leia, Luke and Vader, Yoda, things like that. And well, here's 8 more cards from the villain side, giving you a little flavor of the different cards that are there, the types, lots of Vader in there, armored support, TIE fighters, and of course, Darth Maul. Alright, well, there is Star Wars Destiny, the new 2-player game of this. Now let's start with the obvious. It has a very strong IP, which many people are going to be going gagas over. Now, let me show you my perspective. I like Star Wars. I've seen every one of the movies since I was a kid, was waiting in line back in, when Return of the Jedi came out, and I've seen them all, most of them just once. So I'm not like a Star Wars nut, but I'm not one that dislikes the theme either. I'm kind of sort of in the middle, and this theme is going to be great for some people. Now this game has basically balanced starter decks. Now before this came out, you would have to buy a starter set for the heroes, a starter set for the villains, and you'd have to basically buy 2 of them. Now this kind of puts them together, so you have everything to play in one box in one purchase. So you don't have to worry about things going out of stock and things like that. And they're both balanced decks, and they have different cards than were in the other starter decks. So it has some new things, and they're both balanced. So you can literally just, if you're learning how to play the game or you want to teach someone new how to play the game, you can just buy this and you just, hey, what side do you want to play? Heroes or villains? And it's, it's ready to play as is. Now the game itself, even though there's a decent amount of thinking going on, there's actually pretty relatively simple rules. In fact, I had played this about the same week that I played Star Wars Risk, another mass market game, which is simple too, but had a lot of fiddly rules. With this, it all sort of makes sense. You're playing cards, you're activating cards, you're rolling dice. So the rule set isn't that bad. It's actually, even for mass market, I would say they could probably catch on to these pretty quickly because the mechanisms aren't that heavy. It's mostly the card play and the dice that do most of the things. Speaking of that card play, that's my next big positive, is the timing of that. This reminded me of many card-driven games that I love, like The Making of 1960 or 13 Days or things like that, where you have cards that you want to play, but a lot of them have specific things that will happen during the timing that you play them. Like, hey, if the other player if you have more ready characters than the other player, then this can happen. Or if this, then that. And I love those sort of triggers in the card play, because when you draw your hand, you look at all your cards, you look at your resources, and you look, okay, which one should I play first? Which one does it make sense to play based upon what cards they have out? And really the timing of when you play these cards change what you're going to do, and I love that aspect of it. I like the aspect of resolving those dice because, when you resolve the dice, you can resolve all of them of one type. So you might want to, activate this character, then activate this character together, or you might want to upgrade a specific character with the same type of die that has the same type of attacking, so that when you roll them together, you might be able to resolve them together. And I like how you can sort of combine multiple resolutions with one action when they're all showing the same thing. And speaking of the rolling of the dice, now, when you play this game, it's basically a 20-card deck with your characters, and you're only getting one die per character. Now, at the beginning of the game, before you get more dice out, it can be a little luck heavy where you're rolling the dice and you're like, oh man, I didn't get it, I got a blank, But you can discard to re-roll those dice, and that's huge because on your turn, I'm going to discard, re-roll. I didn't like it, I'll discard and re-roll my next turn. Now, you got to be careful because you only have 20 cards. If you run out of cards, then you'll lose. So I like that aspect that you can mitigate the dice, and there's other dice that a lot of special abilities or focus allow you to change a die to any value. So there's plenty of ways to mitigate the dice in this game. So if you don't like dice chuckers, like Star Wars Risk, you're just rolling, whatever comes up it is. Here you roll, you don't like it, you can do things to manipulate it, and I like that. The battlefields is an interesting thing where, hey, certain ones do different things for different people, but then it's like, okay, if I grab that, I have to pass the rest of my round. Should I do it now really early because then they're going to get a bunch of turns in a row, or can I do it later in the round where it doesn't really matter? I get this ability and I get to go first. So I like that aspect, and as you buy more sets and more expansions, you'll have more of that. So I think this is a great place to start with Star Wars Destiny. It was the first time I've played it was with this game, and it's very good. Yes, it's not the full thing, but it gives you a good sense and you can play it and be fine with it as is. However, if you like it as much as I did, you're probably going to want to start buying different things. And this is a very expansive game. The best way to expand it is either to buy a second one of this exact game, because when you're building those characters, at the beginning you really get to build up to 30 points. So some of your characters you're going to want to have 2 dice, some of them 1 dice, but it only comes with 1 die each. So you'll buy a second set, so maybe you could have 2 dice for Rey and or 2 dice for Poe, or vice versa for the villain side. Plus you'll have other cards, because you typically will build for a full game, you'll build a starter deck up to 30 cards. So you can buy both 2 of these sets and mix and match and grab the different cards from the different ones you want to build your deck and to build your characters, with some of them having 2 dice. Or you could buy some other starter sets that are out there available. Luke just came out, Boba Fett just came out. So whatever side you're playing, you can get new stuff there. So there's lots of ways to expand it. Now, one of my negatives is it does use the CCG model, or collectible card game model, which means you're going to be buying, there's lots of booster packs out there, and it's sort of a money sink where you buy, you don't know what you're getting, they're all randomized, you might get ones you don't want, you might have to buy some on the open market, and I don't really like that. I would have preferred an LCG or living card game where they release specific sets all the time. So I would have liked that better. I also hate that because, when you buy one of these, it's like, oh, I like this starter set. I got the Boba Fett starter set. But in order to get a second die for that character without buying a whole nother set, you got to go to an open market. So there are definitely some negatives to that. But there's definitely at least 4 other starter sets. Now this set here had Rey and Kylo Ren as the main ones. Before this came out, there were actually individual starter sets for Rey and Kylo Ren. And when you bought those, they're actually different sets, and the characters actually do different things. You can't even mix and match those because they actually do different things, but you could buy those just for the cards that are there that are not the character cards. So there's plenty of ways that you could buy a few other starter sets, which I've already bought all 4 other starter sets, plus a second one of these. And I have enough starter sets that I can kind of mix and match, and I might dabble into the boosters a little bit, but probably not too much. But overall, if you like tactical card play, dice rolling, things like that, this game is fantastic. I'm kind of sad that I missed the front end of this when it came out, over a year ago, and where everything was the hoopla. Now it doesn't seem there's that many people playing it right now, but I'm okay with that because I'm just going to play it casually, and it is a fantastic game, and because of that, it's getting a saxophone serenade because I'm keeping it in my gaming library.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.